What if we tell you that Deadpool was not the only supremely impulsive and alarmingly unstable personality in his very own comic book history? You better believe us to escape the wrath of the Mercy sisters. Deadpool foes Mary and Grace Mercy were psychotic twin sisters who killed for sport and wanted to add a superhero name, aka Deadpool, to their prized list of victims. Mary and Grace were maniacal enough to joke about having slaughtered their parents, deranged enough to murder a soccer team opponent just because she was better at the game, and crazy enough to stab a delivery guy to death just because he was nosy. As if that was not enough, they also sold off a rock star's chopped off finger to a hot dog vendor and successfully sandwiched Deadpool in between their cars. If the Killer Sisters have piqued your interest, let us tell you their whole story, which is nothing short of a horror show. Let's go. Chop chop, pun intended. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Backstory of the Mercy Sisters. The Mercy Sisters made their comic book debut in the third volume of the Deadpool 1997 comics, appearing for the first time in issue number 49, which was published in February 2001. They continued to appear in the subsequent issues up until the 53rd one. Mary and Grace were insanely ruthless and sadistic killers who had everything but mercy on their victims, which is such a contrast to their name, the Mercy Sisters. Grace and Mary's parents were their first victims, after which they continued to murder several others and hung the mutilated corpses in the barn of their Southampton summer home in Long Island. When the cops discovered the Mercy Sisters' personal graveyard later in the storyline, it made them throw up from all the stench and gory displays. The Mercy Sisters brought their killing spree to Manhattan, where they lived at the Barucci Luxury Living Building and attended school. Grace and Mary always had each other's back, always did everything together, and were always connected with each other through the headsets they wore. The Mercy Sisters were introduced as silhouetted characters in the initial issues, revealing nothing more than just their names, before they were fully revealed in issue number 52. Mary and Grace balanced each other out by taking turns to act impulsively, with the other one being comparatively stable and acting as the think tank. As cold-blooded killers, the twin sisters matter-of-factly cracked jokes during their heinous acts of crime, such as laughing maniacally while dragging a corpse away, or eating chicken wings while torturing a cop. The Mercy Sisters were often referred to as the Britney twins because of their apparent resemblance to Britney Spears, which they absolutely abhorred. What they also hated was being treated like schoolgirls, and they didn't care about the repercussions of their actions. Mary and Grace, operating from their New York apartment, managed to conceal their identity for a long time, while the cops announced a hefty bounty on the mysterious killers. Terrifying story arc of the Mercy Sisters. Now, let's take a look at their comic book storyline. Grace and Mary, who were extremely athletic schoolgirls, lost a soccer match against the team of Lady of Passion School for Girls, particularly because of the girl Bitsy's incredible performance on the opposing team. The next day, when Bitsy was chilling in her school's locker room, she was paid a surprise visit by the Mercy Sisters. While Mary kept her engaged in conversation, Grace pushed a locker cabinet onto Bitsy, crushing the soccer champ in a pool of blood. "If she's not dead, I'll make sure she never plays soccer again," said Grace, as she took out a saw, suggesting that Bitsy was about to get her legs or feet cut off. In their next appearance, the scene changed to their upscale apartment in New York, where Mary and Grace discussed how a package delivery has led to a bloody mess, quite literally. They remarked, "Mom's gonna freak out when she sees this mess," before jokingly clarifying that Mom is actually dead. Their mutilated parents were in fact the contents of the package, which they supposedly mailed out from their Southampton summer house and left to rot in the New York apartment storage room, which was the size of a studio flat. The delivery boy, who couldn't resist a sneak peek into the parcel, subsequently found himself tied to a chair and killed by repeated stabs, prompting Grace to jokingly blame it on her sister. "Well, Mary, it's kind of your fault. You did a bad packing job after all." At some point, Mary and Grace, too busy with their killing spree, stopped attending school, which drew the attention of school administrator Sarah Morials. She arrived at the twin sisters' New York apartment, hoping for an audience with their parents, but was told that they were out of the country for a very long time. Grace and Mary, having lost track of how long they had missed school, wanted a permanent solution to the Sarah Morials problem. They fiddled with a knife before picking up a randomly lying hockey stick in the bedroom. Just when Grace was explaining how great her sister was at sports, Mary showed off her skills by finishing off Sarah Morials quickly and quietly with the unusual weapon of choice. Then comes the jarring act that brought the Mercy Sisters under the spotlight of the federal authorities. And it all began with Grace's obsession with Killer Dick, a rapper in a heavy metal band. Mary killed a few random concert goers to obtain front row tickets to a Killer Dick concert at the Ritz Club. Soon enough, they were addressed as the Britney-like twins and welcomed backstage by Killer Dick. A few cocktails later, Grace landed in the back seat of Killer Dick's limousine. Some intense flirting led Killer Dick to reveal that he is married and has 3 kids, which left Grace completely disheartened. Mary, who always has her sister's back and has heard the bad news through the earpiece, shot the limousine driver and took control of the car. Mary and Grace then murdered Killer Dick by stabbing him multiple times. They mutilated his body, including chopping off his fingers, which allegedly were later served by a hot dog vendor in Midtown Manhattan. When cops investigated the crime scene, the stab wounds, perfume, skin, and hair samples led the chief investigating officer on the case, Arnold Huff, to arrive at the conclusion that the serial killers, who have plagued New York City for a while now, are Caucasian twin sisters. Meanwhile, the media termed the killer duo as the Switchblade Sisters, referencing the 1975 film about a notorious female gang. The bounty on their heads was raised to $100,000, and then some more, by the family of Killer Dick and his record label agent, which prompted Deadpool to take an interest in the hunt for the Mercy Sisters. In another part of town, the Mercy Sisters, watching the investigation coverage on television, identified Detective Arnold Huff as their next problem and decided to pay him a visit. They tracked down his address by scanning through the white pages and dared to enter a building full of cops. Posing as Girl Scouts selling cookies, Grace and Mary barged through Huff's apartment, slicing him up with a knife while cracking jokes at his weight. While they kept Huff alive, they killed the other cop who stormed through the door in Huff's aid, also seemingly irked by the cop calling them Brittany. Grace and Mary threatened Huff to drop the case, taunting him for making a living by chasing down nice schoolgirls. Later, the Mercy Sisters dressed up as nurses and kept an eye on the injured Arnold Huff, who was being treated at the Bellevue Memorial Hospital. When Deadpool visited Huff, looking for clues to track down the Mercy Sisters, Grace followed him onto the roof and was pretty impressed with the idea of adding a superhero name to their list of conquests. "We are going to kill ourselves a superhero," she said. Annoyed by Deadpool's comebacks, Grace shot him, who toppled off the roof of the hospital building and crash-landed on the pavement. By the time Deadpool got back on his feet, Mary and Grace had decided to ram their cars at him as a finishing blow. In his signature slapstick style, the merc with a mouth attempted to strike a deal with Mercy Sisters, but in vain. "Girls, I don't suppose we could discuss this? Split the ransom and spend some time in a hot tub? You know, all 3 of us." Mary and Grace then proceeded to crush Deadpool by hitting him with their cars from opposite directions. However, Grace, who had forgotten to put on her seatbelt, crashed through the windshield and suffered fatal injuries. The scene changes to the Mercy Sisters seeking shelter at their Southampton summer home, while Mary comforted Grace by telling her that she was the most beautiful sister ever. Grace was bleeding internally, had shattered ribs, was coughing up blood, and was covered in band-aids from head to toe, without the hope of recovery. And after a last meal of macaroni and cheese, Grace convinced Mary to shoot her dead, but not in the face, and flee the house before the police caught up. After honoring Grace's final wish, Mary sped out of Southampton in her car. Soon enough, Deadpool tuned into Mary's headset, having procured Grace's headset earlier, and began trash-talking to her. Deadpool's torturous rant made Mary lose her calm, step out of the car, and pick up a random girl's pet dog from the streets. She then hurled the dog at the cop cars chasing after her, making them crash. Deadpool's taunts about Mary not being able to save her sister made her go all the more unstable and randomly shoot a cop at checkpoint. "I'm learning it doesn't take much for you to lose your cool. I keep forgetting how stupid and young you are. By the way, just how stupid and young are you?" Deadpool kept provoking Mary till she went berserk enough to desperately ask for Deadpool's location. "Tell me where you are, freak show. What's the matter? Afraid of a little girl?" A few directions from Deadpool later, Mary believed she was on her way to kill the superhero and yelled out, "I got places to be, people to kill." Mocked by Deadpool, Mary boarded the Staten Island ferry, waiting to have a face-off with Deadpool like he promised. But this was actually a trap, as Deadpool was actually still recuperating from his injuries and was wheelchair-bound back in the city. Stationed in his warehouse, Deadpool waited for a clear shot of Mary on the ferry boat and shot her right between those pretty eyes with a high-powered sniper rifle to put an end to the Mercy Sisters saga. The Mercy Sisters' choice of weapon. While the Mercy Sisters did not have superhuman powers, they made up for it with their cunning and savagery. The Mercy Sisters were adept at using handguns and knives and saws, which were usually their go-to choice of weapons. To switch things up a little bit, they occasionally picked up everyday items such as hockey sticks, and even cars and a pet dog on one occasion, to kill and crush their victim. In their first appearance, Grace was seen pushing a giant locker to make it fall over on Bitsy. When Bitsy's upper body stuck, they used a saw to mutilate her legs. In Sarah Morrill's case, Mary instinctively picked up a broad-bladed knife from the kitchen and debated killing the school administrator. Mary was the more stable of the two sisters, while Grace was impulsive and inhuman, who finally decided to murder Sarah when she refused to leave the apartment. Grace casually went into the bedroom looking for an item to kill Sarah with and exclaimed, "Bingo!" when she spotted a hockey stick lying around. In Deadpool's case, the sisters improvised the ingenious plan of finishing off the superhero by driving their cars at a speed of 80 miles per hour at him. The impact crushed Deadpool's legs, incapacitating mutilating his lower body, which took a long recovery time even with his regenerative powers. When the Mercy sisters visited Arnold Huff, they nonchalantly tortured the detective with a scalpel, digging it into his arms and legs till he passed out. They were not so kind to Huff's fellow cop, Florinda, shooting her point blank with a .357 Magnum revolver. The Mercy sisters evaluated that Killer Dick deserved a worse fate for hurting Grace's feelings, and thus got creative with the mutilation process, which was so gory that Huff refused to divulge the details to Killer Dick's parents and the media. Mary and Grace's random acts of violence also included killing innocent concert-goers, an unsuspecting delivery person, a limousine driver, and several other unidentified victims whose corpses were found hanging with harpoon chains in the barn. Marvelous verdict. Well, that was the Mercy sisters, who gave Deadpool a run for his money and prompted him to describe them as overambitious schoolgirls. Instead of attending school, the twin sisters opted for a murderous career early on and were at the top of their knife-wielding, saw-using game. According to Deadpool, being one-up by the Mercy sisters hurt him more than any other injuries. Despite their brief appearance, the Mercy sisters were undoubtedly one of the most villainous villains of the Deadpool comics. What are your thoughts on the killer duo? Tell us in the comments below. If you liked our video, please give us a shout out and watch this space for more marvelous content.